everybody, here we are. I'm doing a live video today on YouTube. I've just realised quite how much rubbish I've got in the back there. I thought I'd done a bit of a tidy up, but obviously not quite enough. Anyway, yeah, doing a live video talking about silent baby reflux. Oh, hi Lisa. Lisa's watching live. Yeah, this is actually a really tough one for me, and I am determined that I'm not going to cry because I tried to do this video as a pre-record and edit it, and I must have done about 5 takes of this video already, and every single time I was just left in a dribbly mess. So here we are. I'll do it live and then I can't edit it, so if I cry, you're just going to have to sit and cry with me. It's such a tough one, this, because it's when you talk about baby reflux, people immediately think about a baby throwing up a bit and, you know, in goes the food, up comes a bit of sick and everything's fine. But silent baby reflux is completely different to that. And I don't even know why they call it silent, because babies quite often have silent reflux, especially severe silent reflux like my second baby did. There's nothing silent about it because they do not stop crying, and it's so painful and so uncomfortable for a baby that actually it's far from silent. So that's one of the kind of myths I'll just blow into the water right now. It was so tough because I'd imagine any of you that watch our channel and our videos already know that Rocco, my first baby, who's 11 now, had repeated febrile seizures, and it was a really tough ride with him. He was perfectly well till he was about, well, it was after his MMRs, and he was, yeah, probably about 15 months, and he started fitting, and it was horrible because he kept stopping breathing and he would go blue. It was a traumatic situation for me as a mum, one after the other. And we had so many emergency hospital visits that were just hideous. So I was really pleased to hear from the hospital that baby number 2 is quite unlikely to have similar problems. Yes, might have febrile seizures, but it's not a given that every baby suffers with the same problem. So great relief. And I decided that I just didn't want to go near a hospital. I'd been spent so much time in hospitals with Rocco that I just thought, I labour really well. I had a fantastic labour with Rocco in about 4.5 hours. So I thought, right, baby number 2, I'm going to have a home birth. I've got a wonderful midwife who's a really good friend of mine as well, and so she was able to be there for the birth. My mum flew into the room just as he came out. Guy was there. We filmed it. It was as good a birth as you get. I was at home. I think it was 1.5 hours since I'd had my first sort of twinges. It was just amazing, exhausting but amazing, and I was just so happy. I was on cloud 9, as much as being on cloud 9 as you can be when you've just gone through a really fast labour. And yeah, it was fantastic. I took my baby upstairs and Mum came with me, and I went to do my first nappy change, and I was just so happy not to have been in hospital and to have had this amazing home birth experience. And I laid this beautiful 9.5 healthy baby boy down on his changing mat, and I so wasn't ready for what happened. I can feel me starting to cry already. Not gonna cry. Yeah, I laid him down, and it was as though he was choking, but I knew that there was nothing in his mouth. I mean, he'd been in my arms the whole time, so there was nothing for him to be choking on. But I laid him down in front of me, and he just looked up at me, and his eyes widened, and he kind of, his mouth was open, so he was going blue, and seconds feel like minutes. If you are a mum whose child has ever stopped breathing, every millisecond feels like forever, and it so did for me. Oh my gosh. Time just stood still, and this baby was looking up at me with wide eyes, desperately trying to take a breath and choking. And I just couldn't understand it. It was bizarre. He wasn't fitting. There was nothing in his mouth. And I don't know how, but I managed to stay calm. My mum ran, and I was so glad she was there. She ran and got the phone. She called 999 and told them that I was with my newborn baby. I'd just had a home birth and he'd stopped breathing. And yeah, the ambulance got there so fast, which they have every single time I've ever needed an ambulance. The paramedics were amazing, but it felt like forever. Even though they got there really fast, it felt like forever. And Diggory it was like this gasping for air, and then he stopped and he managed to take a breath, and I picked him up, and it was as though there was something in his mouth and it got dislodged. It was horrific. It was so traumatic. And of course we got taken into hospital, and I think generally we kind of all felt that this was probably some kind of like baby apnea attack, which is fairly common, I think, with babies when they've had, especially when they've had a fast birth. I think you can get like all the gubbins, like all the stuff stuck inside your throat. And yeah, I think it's just a matter of clearing that. So they did loads of tests. Once again, I'm in hospital, lots of invasive tests, which is always heartbreaking to see, especially on a newborn baby. Any of you that have had any sort of newborn traumas, it's really tough, because you've got this tiny, helpless little newborn thing, although he wasn't that little because he was 9.5. But yeah, I mean, it was just horrific, and it was the start of a horrific journey with Diggory, because it was a long time before we worked out that this was acid indigestion, baby reflux. And what happens is with reflux is a baby eats or drinks milk in the case of a newborn, and the milk goes down into the stomach and it pulls with the acid, and then because you have a sphincter at the bottom of your esophagus, I could be wrong, I am no doctor, I'm just a mum who went through this, so please correct me if I'm wrong, I have no medical training, but then the acid that's pulled with the milk comes straight back up the esophagus, so it's incredibly painful for a baby. And in Diggory's case, when we actually had a test quite a while after he was born, you could see this stuff coming up and stopping at his throat. So it was literally choking him. But not just choking. This was a kid who had acid travelling up his esophagus, scarring and burning the tissue. It was incredibly painful, and we didn't know what it was. All I knew was that I had a really unhappy baby, and there is nothing like the feeling of being helpless as a mum when your baby is in pain. And there was no way that you could mistake that this baby was in pain. He screamed after feeding. He screamed if I lay him down in his Moses basket and his cot. It's really hard when you can't do anything. You know, babies have teething problems, and you can rush out and get some Calpol and get it into them. Babies have teething problems and you can put teething gel on. There are things you can do. When that baby's lying down screaming and you are helpless, it's horrible. It was the start of a really tough time for us. I slept night after night in a nursing chair, and you can shoot me down for this, but I did it. I had him on a pillow next to me in the bed because I couldn't put that baby in his own room. I know what all the advice is about sleeping with your baby in bed, especially a newborn, but my newborn kept stopping breathing and wasn't able to take a breath. What would you do as a mum? I had no choice but to sleep next to that baby because I woke every time he choked. And I would feed him and he'd have to stay upright and on me after feeding. So yeah, so that was it. I slept in a nursing chair with Diggory kind of up and over my shoulder night after night after night. There was screaming and pain. And yeah, it was so tough. He became quite an angry baby, because obviously he couldn't tell me what was wrong. We went backwards and forwards to the doctors. We started on ranitidine, which is, we didn't actually, we started on Gaviscon, which is fairly common and super easy to give a newborn baby who's being bottle fed, because you just add the Gaviscon powder or liquid into the bottle. So, and the baby generally just takes it. It's quite chalky, so it goes well with the milk, especially if you're on powder. And it's fairly easy. But when you're breastfeeding, and I was quite determined to breastfeed, it's virtually impossible because you're not sterilising anything and you're not giving them anything via a teat. It's coming from you. So it was really, really hard getting medicine in. God, I've had it spat all over me, and yeah, he hated it. Gaviscon was really tough to give. Then we went on to ranitidine, which I was kind of using an oral syringe and putting that into the side of his mouth, trying to wait until he took a breath to get it in. And eventually we went on to domperidone as well, which I managed to say without getting mixed up with the champagne, Dom Perignon. And then on to omeprazole as well. So, and I think some of them work in different ways. I know the Gaviscon works as it kind of weighs down the milk into the stomach so it doesn't come straight back up the esophagus, or hopefully that's how it works. And I think, I'm probably getting it all wrong because I haven't got a clue about anything medical. But I think the others change different amounts of acid in the stomach to alkaline, so it's not so painful and it's not burning up and down the esophagus. So yeah, incredibly painful time, and it left Diggory with eating problems, sleeping problems. He's 8 now and he's the strongest, toughest, most sporty little bloody-minded, determined boy you'll ever meet. And those are a lot of the pluses, I think. Kind of things left over from, he had to fight for his life. So there was a baby from day one that had to fight for breath. So he is my little fighter. Out of all 3 boys, he is my fighter. And he's an incredible little boy now. But boy, was it a tough time. It was a really tough time for me as a mum. And what can I give you out of this video? I guess I can give you, if you've got a baby who's poorly and is screaming, trust your mother's intuition. Go back to the doctors. When they tell you babies do cry a lot, if you think something's wrong, just go back and back and back, because that's what I had to do. I kept going back saying, this is not working. We're up all night. He can't feed properly. Something's not right. And until I researched it myself and said, this is the test I want. I want a barium swallow. And I went into the hospital and we watched that chalky liquid go down, pull with the acid and come straight back up. And that was it. There was the proof that this was a serious situation and it was severe silent baby reflux. But fight for it. Fight for diagnosis. Fight for medication. And I was that mum that wanted to do everything naturally. I can't think of anything worse than giving a newborn baby medication every day. Broke my heart. But finally, when we were on the right medication, it was incredible the difference that it made to Diggory's life and to my life as well. The things that we did that could maybe help your baby if it's not as severe as Diggory had it is propping up the cot. We had the cot on a 45-degree angle, funnily enough, propped up on every baby sleep book I could get my hands on, which used to make me smile. I used to sit there in my nursing chair looking at Gina Ford's Contented Baby book, propping up my baby cot. And what other things do I need to say? I think one of the biggest things for me as a mum was that it left left me pretty damaged. Obviously, the main thing being that I had had a complete lack of sleep. So for, I think it was 6 years before Diggory ever slept through the night. But certainly the first few years of Diggory's life, I barely slept for 1 hour at a time. And that has a massive effect on you as a mum. So I wish I'd given myself some more love than I did. I was fighting for my kids. I don't know whether you know about the whole fight or flight thing. I was fighting for my kid that was poorly, and I'd have done anything. I put myself through anything. No one else had my baby overnight because I needed to be there. I was the one that woke up when he stopped breathing. It was 24 hours a day on call, and it broke me. It completely broke me, and I wish I had gone for help sooner. I wish that I had realised how traumatic first my situation with Rocco had been, and secondly my situation with Diggory had been. It has an effect on you as a mum when you see your baby go through this and you go through it with them. So please do something for yourself and ask other people for help. Take their help and perhaps see somebody and talk it through what you're going through, because this just doesn't affect babies. Poorly babies doesn't just affect mum. Doesn't just affect babies. But what else helped? I guess Diggory lived in a baby Bjorn. It was the most upright. Lisa's asking, how would you have a third? I'd have been far too scared. Do you know what? I was. And I think that's when I completely crashed and really suffered postnatal depression after having Ozzy. It was my third one. That Ozzy did have reflux as well, not nearly as severe as Diggory had. And with Ozzy, I recognised it so much quicker because I knew the signs. So he was medicated a lot sooner and had a lot easier ride with Diggs. But by then the damage was done to me. The sleepless nights, the screaming, the constant screaming had done its damage, and I really did suffer postnatally after baby number 3. Hence the reason there's no baby number 4. But yeah, I mean, Diggory was upright all the time. His maxi cozy car seat had to go, you know, the nice baby buckety ones. I had to get rid of that, and he had to be in an upright seat so much sooner than perhaps any osteopath would think is great. We did do cranial osteopathy as well. That was another thing we did. I tried to do so many things naturally and just make little changes. I've had to pull over the car because he's been sat next to it. I had to have him in the front as well, which I know adds risks and dangers in itself. But I had to see him because he would just stop breathing. And you never knew when it was going to be. It wasn't always right after a feed. I can remember one time with my mum and dad in the car driving along and looking down at the baby seat next to me and just seeing this baby that was blue. And I knew I was going to cry at some point. Oh God, it's so tough to talk about. This is 8 years on and still it affects me like this. It's really, really tough. Seeing your baby go blue for whatever reason is awful. Hence the reason I'm asking you to look after yourself, because Lisa wants to give me a hug right now. I'd love that hug, thanks. Yeah, so tough. He lived in a baby Bjorn. He was upright in his car seat. He was upright in his pushchair. So much sooner than a newborn baby should be. He slept in the bed next to me. He slept on me in the nursing chair. It was years of pain. And still now, we're on pasta. He can't bear the smell of anything acidic. Apples, berries. He can smell them from a mile off. If I chop an apple for one of the other kids and I'm stood over in the kitchen, he can smell it. You can see his nose twitching from miles off. He struggles with root vegetables, tomatoes, anything that is not very bland, very plain, very dumpy and heavy. He's a pasta, carb boy, bread, cheese he likes, anything that kind of is sucky. It's really left us with a lot of kind of issues. And I don't know if it's the right way to do this, but psychologically, I've decided that I have a baby here and a child here who has had some incredibly painful associations with feeding and incredibly painful associations with sleep. So I decided, and this is against a lot of advice, I had mums that saw me broken from no sleep and kept saying to me, it's time to sleep train this boy now. You just need to put his food in front of him and he needs to eat it. You're creating a really fussy child. Do you know what else you need to take into consideration? Here's a child that's got such bad, painful association with food and sleep. And I don't want him to grow up with an eating disorder as a result of it. So actually, I chose to take it easy. I chose to go through sleepless nights myself and to just calm him, soothe him back to sleep, rather than stand outside a door and listen to him scream. I couldn't do that to a baby that screams so much sleeping already. And food-wise, I don't want him to have an eating disorder as a result of being force-fed, having had so much pain through eating already. So yes, I let him eat too much pasta. Yes, he eats too much bread and a lot of cheese, but we're getting there slowly. He's starting to explore flavours and tastes, and we're 8 years in and it's still a mission to get this boy trying stuff, but we're getting there really slowly, and I'm glad I've done it the way that I have. I'm glad I never force-fed him anything. And yeah, slowly, I'm still learning day by day. How to get things right. But that's my story. Like I said, I have had no medical training whatsoever and probably don't really know what I'm talking about. It is purely my experience with Diggy. I'm really lucky to have such a fantastic kid. Like I said, he's the most fiery, determined kid. He's had to fight for his life. He's had to fight through every meal. He's had to fight for every feed and fight through every night. And he is my little fighter. And you can see that when he's on a football pitch now. You can see that when he's doing a maths test. He's an incredible, incredible kid. And we have a bond like, I can't even tell you. It's an amazing bond with that boy because of what we went through night after night after night. And it's not only him that fought for things, it was me as well. And it's made me a strong mummy. It's also made me a weak mummy, but we're dealing with that too. And yeah, I'm really grateful for having a Diggory, and I'm really sorry that we had such a rough time with reflux. But mamas, do something about it. Look after your babies. Please like this video, share it, because you might just be sharing it with someone who's struggling and needs to hear this story. Please leave a comment if you've gone through silent baby reflux. We'll try and reply to you. And big love, big hugs. If you're watching this because you are struggling with a baby, then I'm sending you every bit of love I've got, because it is not easy. So mamas, babies, big kiss, big love, and please like, comment and subscribe to Hey Mummy.